We are so honored that you're here with us for Season 3.
We want to share, connect, and grow the paper flower community with you. Welcome to Paper Talk.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Paper Talk. Today's episode is sponsored by our patron, Wendy McDowell. We appreciate your donation and we're excited to keep creating content for the paper flower community. If you're interested in supporting us, head on over to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/papertalk and sign up as a patron. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you for joining us for part 2 of Wendy Anderson Paper Flower Journey. If you'd like to hear the first part, make sure to listen to episode number 73.
Can I ask you about the mechanics on your tree?
Yes.
Because obviously most of us, we work on small pieces. So, we have our gauges. But, something like that, where do you even begin in terms of thinking of how to make sure that it's sturdy enough, that it can balance and it's holding in place? Like, how do you even begin?
Well, my friend Catherine said to me, get a real branch and make it. And I said, but what if it's not a magnolia branch? It won't look right. And so, again, like I said, we're problem solvers. We sat down, we thought about it. And I said to Jason, well, we'll go down to the local hardware store and we will find some PVC pipe. We will find some aqua tubing for a fish tank and we'll get them in different sizes and we'll go down in size as we do this until we get the little smaller branches. And we talked about this a lot with Dad while he was here. And Dad said to me, well, don't go buying any PVC pipe. He said, I've got some. Don't get that from the hardware store. But when we got the aqua tubing, he was with us actually, and I got some 6 millimeter and 4 millimeter. I know you guys are in inches. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You guys are in inches, so I know I can't work that out. You'll have to Google that.
No worries.
But the aqua tubing at the hardware store, it was on the last of the roll, and I said to him, "What are you going to do with that box and that empty roll of aqua tubing?" And he says, "Oh, we're just going to throw that away." And I said to him, do you mind if I keep that roll? And he goes, you want an empty roll? I said, yes, please. That's what I put in the planter, is this empty roll of aqua tubing. And the tube inside, I put the PVC pipe right down inside, and I put a cardboard roll that was smaller than that inside it to keep it straight. Right. And it's gone right down through ends of that roll that the aqua tubing were on. So it's made it absolutely rock solid inside there. Then we've put a piece of round cardboard on the top, which I filled with scoria, of course, to hide all that. I didn't want to put soil in there and make it all messy. So using scoria was an easier option. But the trunk is the PVC pipe, and then we've gone to the 6 millimeter when it comes to the branches, gone to the 6 millimeter aqua tubing. Then you get up to the higher branches, it goes to the 4 millimeter. Then you get to number 8 fence wire that you'd find on a farm. Go to a dairy farm and you find the fence wire is 8 millimeter fence wire. And then I've gone down to 18 gauge for the blooms and 26 gauge for the leaves. And basically we paper mache'd all of that, and each thing is inside the larger of the one before. So Jason drilled holes so that the wire would go into each of those sizes. So he had his drill all batteried up and he would drill the holes and we put it in, and I used my silicone tacky glue. I put the glue on both sides of the strip of crepe paper and we just paper mache'd it on. I guess prior to that, we actually used packing tape.
Nice.
We wrapped it first to make it solid. So if the branches do come out, there's actually packing tape, just normal, not duct tape, packing tape. And then we've paper mache'd around that. My friend Catherine, Jason said, look, Wendy's friends, they're coming around all the time. She needs peace and quiet. She needs to get this done. So Catherine stayed away for about 10 days. And when she came back, she walked in and all she could say was, wow. And she said, the last time I saw this, you had flat leaves. These leaves look real.
Yeah.
She said, you've gone and gotten that tree branch. And I said, no, I didn't go and get that tree branch. Yes, you have. That's a tree branch. I said, no,
Amazing.
we've made this. It took us a whole day, that Jason and I putting the mechanics of this trunk and the main branches together to a point where I could then start actually making the blooms, deciding where they would go, if they'd go on the end of the branch, halfway through the branch. There is one thing I have done, and this was an idea from Susan, actually. Can you see this seed pod? I'll put my hand behind.
Yes.
That is off a real tree.
Nice.
That is off a real tree. I've got 3 of them in different sizes.
Cool.
And I went and I got some branches off a real tree.
Yeah.
So there's 3 sizes of those seed pods.
Mhm.
And Susan said to me, well, how are you going to make them? And I said, I really don't think I've got time to make them. She said to me, well, why don't you wire them and put them in your tree? So that's what I did.
Nice.
Well, why not?
Exactly. It looks fantastic. It blends in so seamlessly.
It was great. So basically those seed pods are the center of a flower that the petals have dropped, and now it's the bloom is gone, and it's now opening up and there's seeds inside. And so there is realism in there because there's 3 seed pods.
I love that. Okay, I have another question for you. So I know you had to transport it. How did you pack it to transport it safely to the art exhibit?
Yeah.
Because it's a huge piece.
I'm going to let Jason answer that question.
Oh, can you speak a little bit closer? We can barely hear you.
Carried it into the taxi van and then carried it out.
Wow.
I mean, you're holding it the whole time.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, everybody, we need to get a Jason.
I know. Where do I get one?
I know. We'll have to go to New Zealand, Jesse.
It really just depends on the weather. I ordered the right weather, so we got it.
Amazing. Amazing.
I had been thinking about it because we had it in my craft room, and my craft room is just a bedroom, and it's just totally craft room. And I even said to Susan one day, would you believe me if I told you there's a bed in here? And I should have been showing her around my craft room on the camera. And she said to me, you don't have a bed in there. There's no room. You've got so much craft stuff. And I said, watch this. And I opened the door. The bed is on its end behind the door, standing up against the wall. And she couldn't believe it. I was looking at the tree and I thought, now, how are we going to get this into this taxi van to get it down there? And I thought, okay, we can go through the ranch slider on our decking. It's behind us. We've got the curtains closed so that there's a backing on the tree there, so you the tree. But behind those curtains, there's a decking and a ranch slider. And I thought, oh, well, it'll go through that door and he can go down the decking and he'll get it into the back of the taxi van. And he just sat on the seat in the back holding the trunk of the tree.
What did the taxi driver say when he saw this?
He knew. We had warned him. He knew what was coming.
That's great.
So that was all good. We worked it out. We could get it out the door. We could get it into the taxi van. We'd get it down there, not a problem. But then all of a sudden the penny hit. What about my craft room door? I have to get it out of my craft room. Then we've got to get it down the hallway and through the hallway door into the lounge before we can even make it to the ranch slider. I don't know how they did it, but Jason and Catherine got it up onto a trolley and they wheeled it through. It took a bit of manoeuvring, but they got it through two single doorways in the hallway, and they made it out to the lounge. And it's now sitting on our coffee table after the exhibition's now finished. It's now sitting on our coffee table in the lounge. And every person that has walked in has said, wow. That looks real.
Sure.
And that, I know you'll agree with me, is the highest compliment you can give any paper florist.
Yes, definitely.
When someone says, wow, that is real. So this lady that I went and saw about her tree in her garden, came down to the exhibition. I told her the dates and I said to her, come on down and come and have a look. So she came straight to me in my little room where I was demonstrating, and I said to her, well, how far have you gotten around the exhibition? And she said, oh, I've just come straight here. You told me you were going to be in this little room. I said to her, well, I've got an archway in the main room. You'll see that when you get to go and have a look in there. I said, but what I'd like you to do is go from here and go down the hallway, go to the back door where the wheelchair access is. and in the corner there is your tree. I'd like you to go and have a look. Well, she took a walk down the hallway and you couldn't see it until you were virtually on it. And all of a sudden I heard her voice and she went, "Oh, it's my tree." And I just smiled from ear to ear. She was just so thrilled and could not believe what I had achieved from taking photos of her tree that wasn't even in flower, but it only had blooms. Yeah.
Oh, what a wonderful, heartwarming story. I love that.
Yeah.
So memorable. I mean, like, it's all worth it. You know,
Oh,
after all that work,
absolutely.
you have to do it. It's just
Absolutely. It's not a cheap hobby to have.
No.
I'm glad I'm selling things now because it's paying for itself now. But in the beginning, it was an expensive hobby, importing the paper. But that is worth doing. To go to the Italian or the German crepe paper compared to New Zealand crepe paper, that was the defining moment for me, I think.
Was that when you started selling your flowers? When did you decide that? Okay.
Yes, it was. I did start selling them when I was using New Zealand crepe paper, but once I got the good new crepe paper, that's when my shop just went wild. Absolutely wild. So now I've decorated for a 10th unicorn birthday. I've done my dad's 80th birthday where I did the whole room. I had the archway, the photo booth, a balloon archway. I just did the whole room. It was absolutely huge. I've done the Egyptian wedding. I've done a casket spray, but I downsized it because I knew, being paper flowers, the forever flowers, that this widow would want to keep this for a later date. And I knew if I did a big casket spray like a florist would, she wouldn't have anywhere to put it. The sad thing was that her husband, who had cancer, he passed away while we had our lockdown. And so we could only have a memorial service. But we did have that service because, as I said, Jason's a chef. We said to them, what can we do? And she said, well, would you mind helping in the kitchen? Well, we took over the kitchen and we made sure she had nothing to do. And we just absolutely catered for that. She organised the food and what have you. Once it arrived, we did everything right through to clean up. She had nothing to do afterwards. All she had to do was talk to family. And I had my paper flowers everywhere and it just went down a real treat. And she couldn't believe what we had done again as a team to help her and her family. This is the niece that helped me. That was her dad that passed away. This is the niece that helped me with the archway. So it was a bit of, well, not payback, but it was, hey, Auntie Wendy, I'm here to help. And that was what was so great about it. But from there, I've done these speaking engagements. And then now this art exhibition, which I just could not turn down. It was an opportunity of a lifetime, really.
Can I ask you, do you prefer making smaller, like individual flowers, or do you love doing these huge installations?
I like both. So here in New Zealand, I suppose it's like with any florist, you get a huge bouquet for your birthday, right? And the blooms, they're beautiful, but it's so big, you've got to put it on your dining room table because there's nowhere else to put it. But then because it's your birthday, your family turn up. And so you want to have a meal. So you take it off the dining room table and you put this huge bouquet of flowers on your coffee table. But then the grandchildren start running around that coffee table and they're going to push it off the coffee table and water's going to go everywhere. So you try to put it on your dresser in the bedroom, but the mirror on your dresser won't allow you to do that because the bouquet is too big. Where the heck do you put this huge bouquet of flowers until the family have gone and until it dies a week to 10 days later? So what I tend to do is I downsize my arrangements and my bouquets. I downsize them to a manageable level where it can fit on a mantelpiece, it can fit on a dresser, it can fit on a coffee table. It's sometimes tall and skinny, sometimes it's low and fat. It depends on the need of purpose of what that gift is going to be.
Is this something that you usually have in terms of a discussion with your client about?
Yes, definitely. I find out what they want the gift for, and you definitely have to ask time frames because you need the time to make it. Absolutely is a big tip there too. What time frame, what budget do you have? What are you going to do? What is the colours that person likes? I get a lot of orders for the hospitals or for rest homes because the elderly and even the staff in the rest homes don't have time to water plants. They forget to water plants or what have you. There's only 3 wards, I believe, in the local hospital where I was yesterday, actually, that will let you have real flowers. The other wards won't let you take real flowers in anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I do get a lot of my work, is to people that are in places that can't have real flowers. So yeah, that's what I do. I try to downsize things to a manageable level where people can have them. But then when you get the big things, that's just as much fun. Doing this tree, yes, it was a great challenge, and it tested my abilities. I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but I think I knocked this one out of the park.
Yay! I think so too. Yes. Okay, I have a question. So how do you figure out your pricing? Because I would say you're one of the first paper florists to introduce paper flowers in your area. How did you go about figuring the price that fit your community?
Well, in the very beginning, when I was using New Zealand crepe paper, and it's $1 for a packet. It's cheap as and it's nasty as you know, as we've been talking about. But I would have what I called my Wendy price. And I would look at it and think, oh, yeah, I can make a rose or a carnation for $1. And I'd just charge $1. And then my girlfriend, or 2 girlfriends, the 2 that challenged me to start selling my flowers, one of them said, well, how much are you actually spending on it? Let's work it out. So she sat down and said to me, well, how much are the bamboo skewers you're using? Because I wasn't using wire for stems back then. How much is it for a twisty tie? How much is it for the crepe paper? And how much of that crepe paper do you use? And we knocked it right down to the absolute what I was using per flower. And I was making a flower for $3.50 and selling it for $1. And it was crazy. So then what I had was my Wendy price, which was undercharging, and my friend who helped me work out the prices, her name is Chris, I had my Chris price, who was putting on an hourly wage on top of what I was making. So I kind of found it in the middle, intermediary range where I would cover my costs, but I knew until I got known and I found out that I could make things look so real that I could charge them a reasonable price without them going, oh, that's so expensive, I can't afford that. You're only making a paper flower. So my competition, I guess, around here is the $2 shop silk flowers, and I can't compete with that. That's impossible. But the thing with those is you go into the store and you have to buy the flower they have in stock. You have to buy the colour they have in stock. And if they've only got one in stock because the next person's bought them all, then that's all you can buy. Well, since being in the community, since being a part of Leah's group for a year on her website, since learning from you two and Susan and Janita and everyone that's been so amazing, Jerry and Stephen, and you've all been wonderful. I'm now deconstructing real flowers and learning from nature and making it my way. And I think that's what's important. But we do list it down to every detail for those prices. You have to. Like I said, we are a team, and Jason is my budget man. So he sees what I'm making and he sees the process, and he'll come and he'll come to the doorway. Right, have you had your breakfast? Have you had your breakfast tablets? Because I still take a lot of medication for my health. Then he'll come to the door. Would you like a coffee? Do you want to have some lunch now? Have you had your lunchtime tablets? He comes and reminds me of everything, because if I didn't, I would just sit there and make flowers all day. And
does he remind you of pricing as well?
He does.
It's nice to
so
have
what
it.
I do, I'll come out and I'll say to him, right, I've just made this. In it, there is the wire for the stem, there's the Italian crepe paper, I've used hot glue, I've used tacky glue, I've used pan pastels, or this time I've used ink, and then I'll go through it all. He's seen it in his head as I've been making that process, and then he actually then says, right, blah, 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 this is your price. Now,
oh my God, I love that one of those.
I know.
Now,
Spit it out.
there is another. The reason why he can do this, and I have to tell you this too, and it's got nothing to do with paper flowers at all. He makes a shopping list when we go shopping, right? And because we don't have a car, we walk to town. We have 3 supermarkets in our town. We'll buy the specials at one store and we'll carry them to the next shop. We'll buy the specials there and we'll carry them to the last one and we'll get the rest of our shopping and we will taxi home. Now, he has his shopping list with a price by each individual item, and he knows that we can afford that shopping list before we even leave the house. So
That's wonderful.
this is why he's my budget man. He has a head for figures. He has a head for budget. He knows how much it's cost me when I've bought things because we discuss everything. And it just comes to him in his head. I don't know how he does it. It's just in here is this incredible computer. I think he's been abducted by aliens and they put a computer chip in his head.
But it's so important.
So my wedding, when I had my wedding, Jessie, you were at that meeting. I still had all my wedding stuff here. The lady hadn't picked it up. And the mother of the bride hadn't told the bride that she had organised all these flowers that I'd made. So they were big cardboard wall flowers. And there was name signs in English and Arabic with flowers all around them. There was the bouquet. There was mantelpiece arrangements. There was all sorts I put into that wedding. And I had the makers meeting and I had it there. And Sylvie in London and I were talking before Susan was ready for the meeting and before she started recording. And so she said to me, oh, Wendy, what have you been up to? So I picked up the bouquet and I said to her, well, Jason and I have just finished this. And I was showing Sylvie and we were talking about it. And so when Susan came to start the meeting, she said, now, Wendy, I want you to show us what you've just been talking to Sylvie about. And you guys were really great. I explained what I was doing. I showed you all what I'd done. While I didn't tell you how much I gave the quote for, the order itself was word of mouth. The mother of the bride was a midwife and she'd been to see one of her patients. The baby was at home. She'd had the baby and she went to visit the baby at home. And on the nursery wall was some of my flowers. And she said, man, I would love that for my daughter's wedding. Where did you get them from? So this lady gave her my number and she gave me a ring and she placed her order.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were just incredible. You were encouraging. You looked at the bouquet and said, hold it up to the camera. We want to see it closer. How did you do this? How did you do that? What did you do when this happened? And I explained it all. Well, I explained to you at the time in our group, one of the biggest subjects is pricing. And this time I didn't do a Wendy price. I didn't do an intermediate price. I did what I call my Chris price. My friend that helps me to work it out when Jason's not here. I did a Chris price. I put in a quote and she accepted it. I put it up there and she was happy with that price. She couldn't believe it. When she came to pick up what I'd made, I'd done more than what I'd shown her I could do in photos. It was better quality, a better bouquet, and she was blown away by what the end result was. And she had tears running down her face. And to me, that was all worth it. All those hours. Yeah. So
I would say that a paper florist, when we make paper flowers, we pour our heart and our soul in every single bloom. We try to make it the best that we can. And I just love that. And your heart, your love for paper flowers shines so big. I love that so much.
Thank you. I am very passionate about my paper flower making. And I believe every bloom has character. Now, one's cheeky. One's serious, one's grumpy. Every single bloom is different, even if it is the same bloom. No one bloom is exactly the same when you put it together. And I love making the cheeky ones. You don't know it's going to have that personality until you've finished it. And that's what I love about paper flower making.
So true.
It is a passion. Yes.
Yes. Oh my
And I
gosh.
can talk about it until the cows come home.
Yep. Yep. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. I can't believe an hour has already gone by.
I know.
Wow, here's it. Oh, you're kidding me. Okay.
So we always
May I share one tip with you guys?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
please.
I have already shared it at one of our meetings just recently, and that is storage of our flowers. Now, when it comes to having a lot of flowers, like I did with Dad's archway, when we store our blooms, the ones for the archway, the stems weren't complete because I needed them to go into the archway. But when you make a flower to sell, you complete the stem, you might put on some foliage. So all the flowers I've got in my containers are just plain plastic containers that you will use for storing stuff in your home. But the stems aren't complete for all those flowers I have because they do go into an archway. It's just a plain wire. But I still have all these flowers and all this foliage everywhere. I've got containers and containers under my desk, stacked in my shed, in the garden shed outside. They're everywhere. What I do is I went to the textile factory that makes material here in Levin, and their big rolls of cotton come on a huge round tube. And they were told, this is cut in half, actually, this one I'm showing you right now. So this is probably 30 centimetres tall. So it would have been 60 centimetres tall. So what's an inch?
Right.
That might be 2 inches to you guys tall. So this was originally 4 inches tall, and I put a round cardboard bottom on it to make it a vase. And I filled those containers with these round rolls. Now this one's smaller. This is actually duct tape rolls, 2 put together. So the duct tape was empty. I then taped the 2 together and put a bottom on it. And so what I do is I put them in the container and I stand them, the flowers in them like a vase. So when it comes to my speaking engagements, Jason can take them out and he treats it like a vase. The flowers don't fall through the bottom because it does have a base on it. And he just puts it up on the table like that, and then we can have show and tell.
Oh, it's perfect.
Then some of the filler flowers being smaller, they're on the shorter stems when you're doing fillers. So inside them are rolls, and I don't know if you can see them.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I can in that one at least.
Yes.
So you've got rolls inside rolls.
Yeah, I have. I squashed them in half and squeezed 3 rolls inside it. So I can have 3 different types of fillers in that, and they will stand separately inside. And then because I'm on a lot of medication for my health, in the medication bottles come the little sachets and little plastic thingies that keep the tablets from getting moisture in them.
Yes.
Or if you buy a new handbag or a suitcase or something and they come with a little silicone moisture thingies. I keep all those and I put them in those containers.
Oh, that's
and that
perfect.
helps to keep the moisture away from our flowers.
So important.
Yeah.
That's ingenious.
So I do suggest with the containers, don't buy clear ones or even frosted ones because the light can still get into them and fade our flowers. So if you get coloured ones, I've actually covered my clear ones with duct tape so that the light can't get into them. But it's a great way to store when you have flowers. If you want to bring them out seasonally, I made them on a big job like I did for an archway, and you've got all these flowers, you've got all this wonderful foliage, just don't know what to do without. That was my solution.
Oh, perfect.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
That's wonderful.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
It's ingenious.
Okay, so we have a quick question to ask you. When you're making paper flowers, what do you drink and what do you watch?
Wow, I love water. I've learned that there are water drops out there and you can flavour that water. With a couple of drops, you can flavour the water. And so I drink water and I drink it a lot so that
Good for you.
bathroom stops are needed. It gets you out of that chair and gets you walking around the house.
Yes.
So true.
So important.
Unfortunately, I do have gnarly fingers with arthritis. Starting to bend my finger with arthritis and they get very sore. So those bathroom stops are absolutely imperative. So I drink a lot of water. I drink a lot of coffee. What do I watch? I actually listen to audiobooks on my phone if I can, but actually a lot of time it's silence. I don't listen to anything. So unless it's a series of audiobooks I'm wanting to listen to, I don't actually watch anything. It's actually silence, because what I'm doing is the job I'm doing now is not what I'm thinking about, because I did that on the job before. When I'm working, I'm actually thinking about the job coming ahead and how the mechanics of that is going to work. So while we were doing the magnolia tree, I was thinking about the Christmas order I am now working on. The Christmas order I'm now working on, I am now thinking about the centerpiece Christmas order I've got to start next week. So I'm actually pre-thinking the next order, because I know in my head already what I'm working on now. So if
awesome.
it's not...
It's always in your head.
Yeah.
Right? You're always thinking. It's like nonstop. I can see how
Absolutely.
listening to something, watching to something could be just too distracting.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And every now and then Jason will come in and he'll sit in a chair and he'll just sit and watch me and say, oh, okay, so that's how you decided to tackle this, or had thought of that, or whatever. And he'll come in and keep me company from time to time. Yeah, he's literally, like I said, guys, he is my Superman. And that's all I can wish for anyone in the world, that you have a mate that is not your other half, because you are important yourself. You are enough on your own. You don't need to have someone else to make you complete. But we are a pair, we are a team, and he is 100% my best friend, my husband, my paper florist assistant, my house manager, my dishwasher, my vacuum cleaner, my gardener. He is amazing. And awesome. I literally cannot do what I do without him.
Oh, thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing your story, sharing Jason with us. It's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's been amazing getting to know you. And hopefully you're going to be at the makers meeting. So it's just me committing to going to more makers meetings if I can. That
is my biggest, over and above the advice I've just given.
Yeah.
Be at the makers meetings. No need to be nervous. We have so much fun. We laugh, we talk. We share our techniques, our tips. We share the ugly as well of making the blooms, because if I can tell you what went wrong when I made it, then that might help you to learn too.
Yes, for sure. Exactly.
So you need to share not just the good, but the bad and the ugly of making those blooms. And to share that with someone and encourage someone to have the passion that I have is actually an amazing thing. And I like encouraging on the group. And I don't know if you've noticed, but in all my posts at the end, I always put, be safe, stay safe, happy crafting. And that's important.
It is.
It's really important. Yeah.
Thank you, Wendy, so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
If you're looking for a way to support us, please hit subscribe and write us a review. We would appreciate it so much.
You can also support us as a patron on patreon.com. Your contribution would help us continue to create great content for you and the Paper Flower community.